Okay, all right, I'm logging out.
Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Today is Wednesday, June 24th, 2026. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Lawmakers in North Carolina unleashed the latest attack on Black America, approving a law to eliminate DEI in the state's higher education system over the objections of the Democratic governor. Congress considers reining in college athlete endorsement deals. We'll talk to the former head of the NFL Players Association about this very issue. Donald Trump's State Department is refusing to pay out money allocated for foreign aid. The author of a bombshell new ProPublica investigation will be joining us. Plus, lawmakers grill Trump's postmaster general over the latest MAGA attack on mail-in voting. He actually says that if states do not turn over their voting rolls to the federal government, they are not going to be delivering those ballots in the mail. Seriously. Federal officials have changed requirements for who can qualify as a minority-owned bank, with the president and CEO of the National Bankers Association will join us. Both the House and the Senate passed huge numbers, a crucial housing bill, but the twice impeached, criminally convicted con-man felon-in-chief, the big crybaby, is refusing to sign it into law until they pass his Voting Save Act, which Republicans say we don't have the votes. Plus, protests continue in Mississippi following the death of one-year-old Kohen Wiley. We'll talk to one of the organizers on the ground. Folks, it is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
The GOP's war on Black America continues. This time we're talking about black banks. The Trump administration changed the requirements regarding which institutions can be considered a minority-owned bank. Under the new language, seriously, a bank can qualify as a minority depository institution if it can demonstrate that 51% or more of its ownership is held by someone from a socially or economically disadvantaged group. However, the National Bankers Association is pushing back, arguing the change could make it harder for future minority-owned banks to qualify for MDI status. Nicole Elam is President and CEO of the National Bankers Association. Nicole, glad to have you here. I have been continuously laying out since Trump got inaugurated this attack on Black America. and how they are attacking political, civil rights, legal, social justice, economic, the entire black infrastructure. This is another one of those examples.
Absolutely. As you laid out, this action follows a series of federal decisions, whether it's executive orders, it's court cases that are moving away from race-based assumptions and moving more towards race and gender neutral policies. And this is the latest of many attacks of this nature.
We have, so they're saying that, if you are a white man or a white woman and you claim that you are economically disadvantaged, you can qualify.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what they are doing is replacing a 30-year-old clear standard that said if you were Black, Hispanic, Asian, Pacific Islander, Native American, you were presumed to be part of a racially and socially economically disadvantaged group, Now that completely goes away. So now I can be anybody, a white man, and I can make the case that I am a part of a socially and economically disadvantaged group. And so it's opening up the floodgates, and it's going to have a chilling effect on the industry because the very communities that are going to be impacted by this are the communities that were created to be protected by this particular policy. So it's going to have a chilling effect. And so whenever you replace clarity with uncertainty, it's going to impact new banks. They're not going to want to be designated as an MDI. Why? Because I don't know if I'm going to be able to meet the standard because you took away the standard to hurt me. So why would I go through this process? It's also going to have a chilling effect on the existing MDIs. As you know, there are only 24 Black banks, and those banks need to grow in order to do more lending in their community. But I'm going to think twice. Do I want to raise capital to grow? Do I want to merge with another bank to grow? Why would I do that? Because if I do that, that's a material change. And I'm going to have to go and prove that I am now part of a socially and economically disadvantaged ownership group.
Anthony, go to my iPad. This is the 5-page statement right here. The Department of Treasury Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, OCC policy statement on minority depository institutions. And it goes on here talking about how they've updated the policy statement. It says this removal improves the policy statement's expected longevity and avoids future confusion. The document includes other conforming edits. For example, under the previous version of this policy statement, the OCC could, at its discretion, continue to designate a bank as an MDI under certain circumstances when the bank no longer met the statutory definition of an MDI to improve the policy statement's consistency with FIRREA while minimizing disruption to current MDIs. The updated policy statement describes how the OCC will maintain the designations of current MDIs. And so they're claiming that, oh, no, this is not going to be a disruption, Nicole. This is no big deal.
Yeah, I don't know how moving from clarity from a 30-year-old standard to unclear makes it better. It's not going to make it better. There was nothing clear about a minority group being Black, Hispanic, Asian, Pacific Islander, Native American, and they added women. That was very clear. Now you're saying I'm becoming more clear and helping you out, and it's not going to have an impact on you by moving to something that's big and broad, by saying socially and economically disadvantaged. This would be easier to swallow if we had not seen everything that had happened, if we had not seen executive orders that sought to dismantle DEI programs, if we had not seen cases like the Harvard case, the section or the 8A program, SBA 8A programs that sought to dismantle these types of things. If we hadn't seen that, then maybe. But you're following the same pattern that you followed in those cases.
See, this is one of the reasons why when Trump unveiled his platinum plan, I call it a tinfoil plan, I knew it was fraudulent. In fact, this right here, this is the Black Economic Empowerment and Access to Capital section. It says right here, grow minority-owned businesses with additional tax cuts and stimulate hiring and investment. It says here, increase activity in opportunity zones. Then it goes, fueling access to capital for black-owned businesses. Increasing opportunities for small business lending and technical assistance through community development financial institutions as CDFIs in order to grow business and create generational wealth opportunities with over $400 billion in lending. Examine alternative ways to build credit. Make the Minority Business Development Agency permanent. Appoint its leader to the Assistant Secretary of Commerce level. Create a sub-office of African American affairs and engage with private sector advisors to ensure real-world plans and solutions. Increase the number of black-owned contracting businesses, financial service entities, and private equity investment funds through regulatory reform and up to $40 billion in government funding alongside traditional private investment. And host senior executives from major financial institutions on a quarterly basis to advance new and equitable lending programs for black communities. Nicole, all of this was flat out trash.
All of those things have been attacked. All of those things. Even when you think about the lawsuit against MBDA, all of those things have been attacked. And what we do know is that capital is the civil rights issue of the 21st century. And when you attack people's ability to have access to capital, you attack their ability to build wealth. And when you come after black banks, you are coming after communities' access to capital. That means people aren't going to get access to mortgages. They're not going to get access to small business loans. They're not going to be able to build businesses, buy homes, save and invest in their future. They're not going to be able to do that. Why? Because what we know for certain is that black banks do more lending in their communities than their peers. We do 2 times more lending in our communities than our peers. So when you are attacking capital, you are attacking our ability to build and create wealth. And they have been systemic along the way. In this move to be more race neutral, in this move to be more gender neutral.
Well, and not only that, the reality is in the last year, Biden-Harris, black businesses got $10 billion in federal contracts. It was 2%. That's not anything that's just to yell about, but the reality is that that was actually a record. And here's what we know, under Trump, it's now down to 1.2%. We know the SBA broke records 3 straight years with its lending to black businesses, and we're seeing a massive decrease under Trump. I keep saying this is an anti-black administration, and they do not want to see African Americans thrive. And these things that they are doing are very specific in terms of how they are attacking black America.
Over the last 5 years, you saw the most growth amongst black banks that you had ever seen. They grew by 80% in asset size, the most growth that you have ever seen. Now you're starting to see a decline. And that's not by accident. It was because you had policies that were in place that were focused on helping these black banks grow. And now you have policies in place that are doing the very opposite.
And so I just want to be perfectly clear what you just said here. Let's be real clear. Because you had Biden and Harris, a Democratic president and vice president, and because you had them advocating specifically for black banks and for CDFIs, and then you had, of course, the Congressional Black Caucus and others. You had them controlling the power of the purse, controlling the House those first 2 years. There was a direct benefit to black America as a result. And so when you talk about lending, that's lending to small businesses, individuals who need that support. And let's just be perfectly honest, and I'm going to name names. These are businesses that could not go to a JP Morgan Chase or go to a Bank of America or go to a Wells Fargo to get that investment, to get those loans, to get those lines of credit. And so this is what we're seeing. And so you had Democrats who were advocating for black banks, and you were the beneficiaries of their work. And now we're seeing that it's not the case under Republican MAGA rule, correct?
What I'm saying is that intentionality matters. When you have an administration that is focused on black businesses and black banks and black community lenders, you see it reflected in policies and procurement and programs. If you have an administration that is intentionally doing the opposite, you see it reflected in programs, policies, and procurement. And we are right now seeing 2 different things. Last question for you. Obviously, he is in the White House for 2 more years. Obviously, you've got a midterm election going on this November. Listen, if Republicans continue to control the House and the Senate, and obviously he's there in the White House, this is going to be hugely problematic for black banks over the next couple of years. Yes or no? Absolutely. Yes. you are not going to see new Black banks being formed. It's going to be very difficult for Black banks to grow and to raise capital. Why? Because why would I go through the process of putting myself through a new designation that is unclear if I don't know what the outcome is going to be? So it's going to have a chilling effect on new banks. You're probably not going to see a lot of new Black banks being formed, and it's going to have a chilling effect on existing banks who are trying to grow, raise capital, and merge.
All right, then. Nicole, we surely appreciate it. Keep up the good work. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, quickly go to my panel. Rebecca Carruthers, President and CEO, Fair Election Center out of D.C. Robert Patillo, Civil Rights Attorney with the Patillo Law Firm out of Atlanta. Jolanda Jones, Texas State Representative and lawyer. We also have Georgia State Representative Derek Jackson joining us right now. Okay, glad to have you here. Real quick, Robert, you work with Rainbow Push in their economic project there, and this is fundamentally clear. This is about economics. This is about money, and we tried to tell these people, and all these ADOS and FBA people who were telling us, oh no, Kamala's this, she's, and all these fools running their mouths out here. Folks who don't even vote saying, oh no, Kamala is the same as Donald Trump. There's no difference between the two. This is a perfect example where there was a difference between the two.
I want people to hear me. I say this almost once every quarter. Those organizations, ADOS, the FBA organizations, are almost all COINTELPRO. If you look at where their money comes from, they do not come from Black organizations and Black people. When is the last time you saw an ADOS or an FBA fundraiser? When was the last time you saw an online marketing campaign saying for you to donate to them? Where is their money coming from? Who are the leaders of these people? Why is it every time you click on the profile, it is like something that got created and you're looking from a profile out of India? Because the entire point is that these are online bot farms that are meant to fool and to deceive Black folks to not exercise our political power. At the end of the day, President Trump is signing executive orders to overturn some kind of law that exists. Those are the laws that are existing to help Black people that y'all are saying don't exist. When you're talking about these programs and these initiatives that have helped build this Black middle class that we have today, those were created through the exact same political apparatuses y'all claim or have been ineffective and have done nothing for Black people. It is crucially important that we teach civics in our community, that we teach people to understand not just to vote, but why they are voting and the power involved in it. And just as we saw in these elections yesterday, where you saw Democratic socialists winning around the country when everybody has told us that they could never win, what we are seeing now is a political sea change that we haven't seen since the rise of the Tea Party a decade and a half ago, where we're seeing a realignment of American politics. And if Black folks are really going to start fighting towards many of these causes, such as reparations, such as territorial concessions, such as an acknowledgement of slavery, the things we have talked about, this is the time to do it. But you can't do that without unity. You can't do that without a plan. You can't do that when you're allowing the federal government and their intelligence agencies to intentionally break Black people apart and turn us against each other with online misinformation. Yep. We're seeing this from every group across the globe.
Derek, we keep trying to explain to people there are consequences to elections. And for the people who chose to sit out, for the people who said, oh no, I don't like her position on Gaza. And fine, you cannot like her position on Gaza. And that is an issue. But also the attack on Black people, the attack on Black banks, the attack on Black companies, the attack on diversity, all of that also is based upon the person sitting in the Oval Office. This fool told us what they were going to do, and they're doing exactly what they said they were going to do.
Roland, this is Project 2025. You're exactly right. They said in Project 2025 that they were going to do this if they get back into office. And so now look, Nicole said it best. They're coming after our economic strength. Not only are they coming after our political strength, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that later on the show, but they're coming after our economic strength. So when you talk about Black and brown communities as it relates to small banks, Black banks, and come to housing and small businesses, we've grown in the last 30 years, Roland, and you covered this very, very well on your show. If you look at the number of home ownership in the Black and brown community, we continue to soar. We continue to expand on small businesses. Why? Because we are able to go to Black-owned banks. and get the loans that we need, get the access to the capital that we need, and grow. The OCC is dismantling that right before our eyes. So they're coming after our economic strength, and as Robert just alluded to, they're coming after our political strength. And what's next? They're going to come after our education, as we are continue to talk about. This was all outlined. We've been talking about this the last 2 years in Project 2025.
Listen, Jelana, folks are going to learn that, again, if you sit out elections, if you act like this stuff is not important, there are going to be consequences. It is all coming downstream. Listen, in Texas, that MAGA governor, Greg Abbott, that MAGA lieutenant governor, Dan Patrick, got rid of the HUB program, which was actually put in place by Republican Governor George W. Bush. That is directly going to impact black businesses. This is what MAGA is all about.
And absolutely. And here's what's funny. A lot of the black people you see supporting Republicans are upwardly mobile black people who are successful, who have contracts. And for some reason, even they are finding out that you black too. Because sometimes you make it to a certain level and you think, oh, I'm not black or I'm above race. Well, that's absolutely not true. And say what you want to say about Kamala, she black. She might have an Indian mother, but her daddy was from Kenya. She went to an
Jamaica. Dad was Jamaican.
Jamaica, I'm sorry. Okay, her dad's Jamaican. Okay, I was off. Apologies for that. But at the end of the day, she was more black than Donald Trump. And even when he was president before, he showed himself to be racist. And he said very racist things, very derogatory things about black people. So for anyone who wanted to be angry at her about one thing, let me tell you, we are not a monolith. Black people have a lot of problems in a lot of areas. So with HBCUs, access to capital, affordable housing, affordable health care, you go on and on and on, the job market. We needed to, as a people, vote for a black woman. Sometimes, I mean, that's how they vote. So why wouldn't we do that? But everybody is hurting now. Everybody, including most of the people who thought Trump was better for them.
Yep.
Because they chose one issue to judge Kamala on, but they always give white folks the benefit of the doubt on everything. And for the most part, so many of us are brainwashed, we're colonialized, and we actually think white folks' ice is colder. And that's exactly why we're in the problem we're in right now.
Yep.
And we are finding out that their heat is hotter.
Well, folks are going to learn. So this is real. The impact is real. Folks, this weekend in Senatobia, Mississippi, protesters gathered at a Walmart where a shooting took place of a 1-year-old black boy who was shot and killed. They're demanding accountability and calling for a boycott, not just of that store, but of Walmarts across the country. The demonstration ended after police deployed tear gas to disperse the crowd. And in the days since, police have brought in floodlights and generators in order to further surveil the protest. Kohen Wiley's family will have a viewing of his body on Friday, followed by a funeral service and public vigil on Saturday. Markel Bridges is the founder and president of Building Bridges Coalition, an activist and community organization there in Mississippi. He joins us right now. Markel, glad to have you here on the show. And so for folks who don't understand, why specifically are y'all telling black folks there, stay away from Walmart in Senatobia, Mississippi?
They beat, thank you, and thank you for having me, Brother Martin. They beat and tased a black elderly woman for simply dropping her mother off at the front door and then parking in a handicap parking spot. They are responsible for the call out that resulted in 1-year-old Kohen Wiley death. Tragic unaliving, murder. Senatobia Police Department have a long history of brutalizing the city of Senatobia. We know this is the same area in the same city where a young black 10-year-old was arrested for peeing outside. 6 black boys was arrested and stolen and kidnapped from their parents for doing nothing but crossing over a white man's yard. We met and talked with community who have been brutalized at Walmart, racially profiled. And I don't have to tell people people, our people, what goes on at Walmart and why we should boycott. And even deeper than that, it's about creating a unity. The only thing these people care about is their economic power. The Walmart in Senatobia makes $85 million to $115 million a year. Every time we've successfully shut it down 3 times with no violence, 100% peaceful, didn't even leave trash in the parking lot. Only violence came from the police. And every time we shut that store down, that's $200,000 to $300,000. We went in the city council meeting and they told us, oh no, they can't put the officer on leave without pay. We went and shut down the Walmart. They did it the next morning.
Have y'all had any conversation with Walmart executives at the store or regional or national?
I had a conversation with corporate about the memorial. We have a permanent memorial set up for him. That's the only conversation I had. I leave that type of stuff for Ben Crump, the family's legal team. But I did address him about a permanent memorial. So we won there, that we come and pay our respects to Kohen Wiley. And that's the only conversation that I've had with him.
Are folks there actually following the boycott?
Of course, yes. It's been, first of all, the interorganizational unity, the people of Senatobia, they were ready. The turnout, I just can't, kudos to them. My job in Senatobia is just simply to get these black brothers and sisters organized. But their effort, their energy has amazed me, their willingness to fight. But like I said, it's a long history, and enough is enough. We draw the line with a black baby.
You're about 40 minutes away from Memphis, and obviously, I'm sure that at that Walmart, folks depend upon that. And so where are folks there going to buy products and services that they need that they traditionally might go to that Walmart?
Thank you for raising that question. What I'm trying to show black people is you can't boycott, you can't fight a war if you're dependent on the master's ice. So we need our black millionaires, our black billionaires, our black community leaders, our black wealth to come together and create a black store chain so we can give our people other options when these people don't respect us, when they choose to make calls that leads in our deaths, over a misdemeanor. A misdemeanor should never end, alleged misdemeanor should never end in death. So we need our people, our structure to come together and unify, create co-ops, and create a black store chain. That's what the boycott is about. Unity, black unity.
What's next?
So this weekend we have a march, Friday at 10 a.m. Then after the march, we have a town hall meeting. The march is going to be powerful. This is the first time that we're going to the police department and taking it actually to the pigs who did it. Excuse my language, but to those racist cowards who killed this baby and who are looking to justify it. Then we'll be going to rebuild the memorial and of course, continue to boycott upon Walmart. The viewing is at from 4 to 6, and then at 6 to 7:30, we have a town hall. The Honorable Dr. Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. of the Black Panther Party Cubs will be the keynote speaker.
You said town hall is Saturday? Town hall is Saturday?
Yeah, no, the town hall is Friday. The town hall is Friday. That's same day as the march. And we will have Baba Akili, BLM Rapid Response. We'll have Dr. Jill Collins Jefferson with the Executive Director of Julian. We'll have Melanie Marie, a political organizer out of St. Louis who actually freed 40,000 black men by shutting down a prison there. And we'll have Paloma Wu at the Mississippi Center of Justice Impact Litigation. She does a lot of work. She's kept a brother out of jail when I've been falsely arrested for protesting and organizing and doing the work.
All right, then. Markel, well, listen, keep holding the line and demanding accountability there in Senatobia, Mississippi, and keep us abreast of what's next.
Thank you for all you do. It was beautiful to see you in Montgomery. I was telling you then that I'm the one who actually exposed the Goon Squad.
Yep, I remember.
Yeah. So have a good day, brother. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for caring about your people.
Last question. The town hall you have on Friday, are y'all live streaming that?
Yes, and I already talked to the young sister. I'm going to make sure you get access. The family wants the funeral and everything public, but they have requested no video or any pictures of young baby Cohen's body, but they do want this public and for the public to support them.
All right, well, let's keep us abreast so we can get to our digital team, so we'll restream that.
Thank you.
All right,
so much,
Markel, I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Folks, got to go to a break. We come back. Senator Ted Cruz wants to reform NCAA NIL. What is this really about? Is this about keeping black folks from now finally getting paid for athletics? We're going to talk to DeMar Smith, former executive director of the NFL Players Association, about that. That is next, right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, let me tell you about Chapter. Now, if you're on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no strangers to systems that don't have our best interests at heart. But we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. And they're focused on one thing: what works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it. If you're already in the right one, they'll tell you that too. There are no games. Just last year, people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. It's 20 minutes and a real person. It's completely free. My parents actually have already called. My mom sent me a text. Folks, give Chapter a call at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281, and connect with someone you can trust. Folks, these are the kind of services that we need for our audience here at Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. So call Chapter right now, 724-264-8281.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, it's John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
This is your boy, Earthquake.
And you're tuned in to
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Some of you might say, Roland, how is this next story, the GOP war on Black America? Oh, but it is. On Capitol Hill, Senator Ted Cruz is pushing a bill that is going to regulate NIL deals, name, image, and likeness. What you have is you got some Democrats and Republicans championing this bill that could rein in player paydays, fundamentally alter the financial realities of college sports as we know them. They're really upset also about the transfer portal. They're upset that for the first time, athletes and their parents have leverage, have influence, and they're maximizing that. These schools are upset, and you saw Donald Trump have this big old meeting, and Nick Saban is there, and they had all these other coaches who were there, and they had other folks talking about, oh, we've got to reform the NCAA. We can't have this. And And all you keep hearing them talk about is the players and this schools are losing money. But not one time have I heard them say, you know what, we need to cap what coaches are getting paid. We need to stop coaches from being able to leapfrog from one job to the other. So what's going on here? Remember, there were two bills. There was a SCORE Act that was scrapped because the CBC came out strongly against it. And actually, two of their members were responsible to the bill. They got them to drop that, so that sucker died. Now Cruz is trying this new bill. DeMar Smith is the former executive director of the NFL Players Association and knows this stuff through and through, understands labor rights, understands the law. He joins us right now. And I've been glad to have you here, brother.
Good to be here.
And want to talk about this for the last few weeks. You've been traveling. Let's get into it. So you went through both of these bills.
Yep.
The SCORE Act is dead.
Right.
This Cruz bill is still alive. But explain to people how you analyze both of those bills.
Well, look, the Cruz-Cantwell Act, in some ways, is just a clever sleight of hand to revive the best parts of the SCORE Act. So two big losers under the Cruz-Cantwell Act. One, the House settlement that was the antitrust case that ended the NCAA's antitrust violations, allowed schools to use up to 50% of their athletic revenue to go to athletes. Cruz-Cantwell bill cuts that down to 20%. Big winner, schools. Huge winner, all the other conferences other than the SEC and the Big Ten. But the other sleight of hand that they're doing here is both bills allow for the NCAA to have antitrust liability exemption.
Now, for folks who don't understand, antitrust, that's why baseball, that's why the NFL, and again, these are private enterprises
100%.
who got Congress to give them a sweetheart deal. Explain to people that from the perspective of the pro sports, why that's matter and why that's dangerous for the NCAA.
Well, you think about the legends, Oscar Robertson, Curt Flood, John Mackey in football. All of those athletes sued their leagues for antitrust violations, which allowed them to break, except for Curt Flood, allowed them to break the stronghold that the leagues had on revenue, wages, hours, working conditions. The NCAA has been looking for antitrust exemptions for years. They never got it. But what the Cruz-Cantwell bill does is give the NCAA insulation from being sued for antitrust violations, but on the other side, it doesn't guarantee that college athletes will be employees and can have a union.
So in football and in baseball, you have Players Association.
Yep.
You have a union that's fighting for their rights.
You have to have them. So for every collective bargaining agreement that I did, the owners always absolutely mandated one thing, that the players be allowed to unionize. Why? Because if there is no union, they don't get the antitrust exemption. So imagine how clever this bill is. This thing gives the NCAA more power than any professional league ever got. So the idea that they are giving basically the NCAA a blank check to be absolutely immune from most laws, and nonetheless, there is nothing in both of those bills that say every college athlete will be treated as an employee, and therefore they can form a union. It's getting all of the up with none of the down.
And so what we have been witnessing over the last several years, finally, athletes being able to leverage their talent, their marketability, being able to earn revenue. When I think about Terrell Pryor, when he played at Ohio State,
100%.
he was suspended for signing jerseys.
100%.
He lost, and so the university is making money, and they said, you cannot make money off signing your name to a jersey that has your name on it.
100%.
And then you have the NCAA that was making millions off video games using the likeness. You talk about Oscar Robertson.
Sure.
He ain't played in Cincinnati in 60 damn years. But they had the likeness of Oscar Robertson, his number, his body type, Cincinnati, on the game. He wasn't making money, and it was Ed O'Bannon who sues them. Had them on the show,
100%.
And they kicked their butt, and they were like, oh, damn. Now they're having to share the wealth, and they don't like it.
It took 25 years to allow a person to be compensated for their name, image, and likeness. Let that sink in just for a second. 20 years of litigation over whether someone can use the innate characteristics of a human and not allow you to make money off of it. So the Cantwell-Cruz bill, to me, bails out the NCAA for decades of absolute malfeasance and perhaps the worst leadership that I have seen in sport. I mean, think about this for a second. And both bills, actually have one thing in them that is a non-starter for me. If you are willing to use the term student-athlete, you are buying into the National Collegiate Athletic Association's original sin. And that term, student-athlete, when they told me I was a student-athlete when I got to college, Roland, you could not tell me anything until I learned the origination of the term. That term came from a man named Ray Dennison and his family, Ray died on a football field. His wife gets death benefits under workers' comp. The precursor of the NCAA rides in, they sue the wife, they sue the 3 kids. Why? Because paying for benefits and paying for health care is not the NCAA model. So for the first time in history, the NCAA convinced a court that Ray Dennison was a thing called a student-athlete. And any bill that accepts the NCAA's original sin should be dead on arrival.
So, folks, I interviewed Taylor Branch a number of years ago on my Washington Watch show, and he had a book. It was an e-book, and it was called
The Shame of College
The Cartel, Inside the Rise and Imminent Fall of the NCAA. And that point that you just made, people did not understand that the phrase student-athlete was not created out of academic concern.
No.
It was not, let's really describe it.
It's not an exalted term.
It was a lawyer that created the phrase
100%.
To defend them in a lawsuit.
100%. And every time, and I love March Madness, but every time you hear the word student-athlete, 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 it's the NCAA hiding behind their original sin. And whether Ted Cruz or whether Cantwell understand that original sin is on them. But if you have a bill that starts with accepting that second-class status of athletes, that is purely a wrong way to look at what we're trying to do to fix college athletes. And look, are there things that need to be fixed? Yes. But I find it absolutely rich that everyone is complaining about the transfer portal when I consider the poster child of the transfer portal is Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll left the USC athletic department in shambles. They took away Reggie Bush's Heisman Trophy. And the person that utilized the transfer portal to its highest and best use was a coach who left that stinking pile at USC and went off to coach at the Seattle Seahawks. So I don't understand why everybody is so concerned about the transfer portal now that gives students the exact same freedom of movement that coaches have had for decades. And
this is just a reality. A student who is a music major,
100%.
A student who's a journalism major, that student can say, okay, after 1 year, I'm gonna go here.
Oh yeah.
Oh, if this school says, hey, we're gonna offer you a larger scholarship,
better
cool.
dorm room.
Oh, cool. I can go to you. So a regular college student has the right, has the ability to go, if you're in the band, anyway, you can hopscotch, you can go to 2, 3, 4 schools, no one complains. The only issue might be, can you transfer your credits, stuff along those lines. That's all that matters. But what these folks want is, they want the labor, they want the riches, and they're trying to put that genie back in the bottle.
Trying to put the toothpaste back in. Let me take it one step further. In my class, I'm going to be teaching in Georgetown in the fall. I teach a class, and I use the hypothetical that you talk about, and I call it the day of the big game. You've got one side of the stadium and the football players are running out. You got other side of the stadium and the band is running out. Let's just assume that a football player runs out, trips, falls. He's a junior, tears his knee all to pieces. Let's look at what happens to Johnny Linebacker. The next year, Johnny Linebacker does not get a scholarship, Roland, because he cannot play. A knee injury is a 9-month recovery. He's not going to be ready to play in the fall, and a coach is not going to give him a scholarship. Why? Because under the NCAA rules, your scholarship is a 1-year renewable scholarship. On the other side of the stadium, Sally Tuba runs out. She trips over the same piece of turf. She goes down. She shatters her jaw. She cannot play the tuba for a year, but she's on a 4-year music scholarship. Mm-hmm. She gets to stay in school on scholarship. Johnny Linebacker does not. Mm-hmm. And there is a young man near Rutgers University named Eric LaGrange who is paralyzed for life in 2010 for playing football, and today he has a GoFundMe page. A GoFundMe page trying to cover his cost for injuries that he suffered on a football field. Mm-hmm. So you could literally have the same student on the same day suffer the same injury, and one gets to stay in school with medical bills 100% paid, and one of them loses the opportunity to go to school because he loses his scholarship, and that person might have to have a GoFundMe page.
Right.
Well, I think until any bill recognizes the original sin of the NCAA, both bills and every person who loves sport should just consider that bill to be dead on arrival.
See, that's why it really pisses me off when I listen to fans bitching and moaning about a player leaving or going here, or it's the love of the sport. It's the money.
For the good of the game.
Right. I mean, we just watched the Knicks win the NBA championship, and people are like, well, Jalen took less money, and it was really about winning the ring and the title. James Dolan don't care about that. No. James Dolan's not saying, well, I'm gonna take less. No. And so people need to understand this system. In fact, go to my iPad, and I have this book. This is the man who led the NCAA longer than anybody else, Walter Byers. He wrote the book called Unsportsmanlike Conduct, Exploiting College Athletes. This is the man who was over the NCAA, who laid out the original sin, who 100% laid out how they screw
the scheme
athletes.
The scheme. Walter Byers lays out the scheme. And my point, and you and I get frustrated for the same two reasons.
It's like he was the head of the cartel, and he's telling y'all, let me tell y'all how we sell drugs. That's what he did.
He talks about how he made up the term student athlete. So to me, you have two things you can get wrong if you're a congressman or a legislator trying to fix something. One, being ignorant of the history. And second, if you come up with a system that in any way, shape, or form creates a two-classification system, it has to be wrong. And for all of those fans who talk about the love of the game, the reason why I engage them and I tell the story about the big game and the player on the right and the player and the tuba player on the left is, let's talk about it if it was your son or if it was your daughter. Well, I would love a bill to be called Let's Treat Athletes Like Everyone Else in College Bill. Because that way, you have to sit down and address all of the issues of the original sin. And you have to come to some really, really tough understandings. One, most athletes who are playing at a Division I school, and I had a son who did the same thing, are spending 60 to 70 hours on the field. Why do we expect them to graduate in the same 4-year period as anybody else? You come down to some of those people and you say, hey, look, maybe we should give those athletes an extra year to graduate. Well, D, man, I don't know how we're going to afford that. It's a chair in a room. Let's pump the brakes. One of the most interesting studies that I saw last week was the Virginia Board of Governors for schools came out with what I thought was a really thoughtful report about the importance of the Virginia Athletics Department. And when I read that, I was stunned because it actually put into financial terms, what does an athletic department run by whom? The athletes. What does that contribute to a university? And it talked about the hundreds of millions of dollars in free advertisement that the university gets. It talked about the millions of dollars that these athletes are generating for the local community and the local environment. So don't tell me that we have to have a two-tiered system because you get your feelings hurt if your quarterback goes into the transfer portal.
Right.
Just stop. Stop. Why do we have a two-tiered system that treats one set of athletes at the university different from another set of athletes because someone cleverly came up with the term student hyphen?
I'm going to go to my panel in just 1 second. The NCAA also just adopted this age change. Yeah. And now saying, okay, no waivers. Okay, you get 5 years, period. That's all you get. And they're moving. But what really got me, and again, people need to understand when you're getting played, when you're getting pimped.
Right.
It was a trip, and if I find it in a second, I will. It was a trip watching watching college sports, and they're showing we need the SCORE Act because if we don't, all of these Olympic sports, they're not going to be able. So badminton and volleyball and all of these sports, and we have to adopt this because we're going to lose all of these women's sports because they're going to go away. And they're showing you oh my God, how great we do winning gold medals in gymnastics and all this sort of stuff. And I'm watching this crap. I'm like, if y'all fall for this, you're stupid. But this is also why the public falls for giving billionaire NFL owners and NBA owners billions of dollars to build new stadiums because they are trying to appeal to you emotionally.
100%.
And you don't even realize how
100%.
Who's getting screwed and how they playing.
Well, look, the Buffalo Stadium will go down in history as the worst deal for taxpayers in history. Also, all because they wanted to make sure that the Bills stayed in Buffalo. And by the way, at the end of the day, there's a guy with a $100 million yacht parking his yacht in the Hudson Bay so he can watch his daughter play tennis. And at the same time, you're taking away.
That's the guy who owns Buffalo Bills.
Pagula, right? Yeah. You're taking away money from women and people who need food stamps. You're taking away money from the schools. Under what scenario does a billionaire get to build a free profit center?
And that's what the NCAA has been.
Same thing.
That's what they've been.
Thing.
They have been, and we know where they're going. They are going to really a two-league model because it's all TV driven when it comes to football. And now they talk about, let's expand to 24 teams in the playoffs. I mean, it's all about money.
Here is what the NCAA is worried about and the reason why they are backing these bills. Both the SCORE Act and the Cantwell-Cruz bill was the let's keep the NCAA around bill. Because two conferences have slowly come to the realization that they do not need the NCAA anymore.
SEC and Big Ten. And really, that also, and this thing goes back, now even though I understand when Eddie Robinson testified, when it came to the TV contract, I think went to the Supreme Court by saying NCAA, you can't regulate the one game
100%.
a week. That allow conferences to negotiate their own deals, then allow schools to negotiate their own deals.
Right.
If people don't realize Notre Dame has their own contract with NBC. Folks don't realize Jackie Sherrill was that close
100%.
to negotiating the same deal
100%.
with Texas A&M and ABC.
But the only reason they got it is they didn't have the antitrust protection.
Right.
This gives them all of the cover that Eddie Robinson wouldn't have any ability whatsoever to fight. So what this bill will do is literally keep the NCAA in power while schools and conferences like the SEC and the Big Ten are saying to themselves, well, wait a minute, what do we need you for?
Right.
And by the way, this House settlement, by the way, and you want to talk about the non-revenue generating sports, and I'm a big believer in women's sports. The reason we have women's sports is Title IX.
Yeah.
The fact that the lawyers on both sides, and one of probably the main lawyer who settled the House settlement is a dear friend of mine. But let's remember, the House settlement did nothing to contemplate Title IX. Title IX is not a sports act. Title IX decided by Congress that any organization receiving federal funds, you have to make sure that the opportunities for women are exactly the opportunities.
So I use it in my speech all the time. Title IX was about the professional schools.
Yes.
It was about dental schools, law schools.
Not sports.
Engineering was not sports. And in fact, that was a different entity that ran women's sports in college.
100%.
The NCAA didn't come into the picture until the 1980s.
They're always late.
Right. So when they keep talking about Title IX in sports, I'm like, y'all, that was not why Senator Ted Kennedy championed the bill and got it passed.
No, Title IX in sports came as an afterthought, right? But now it's here.
Right.
But here's the reality. Under the House settlement and the way that it's proposed, it is a fact that the majority of the money is going to go to college football, college basketball, and maybe women's basketball. So the House settlement and Title IX are on a collision course. Right. And again, when you sit back and you realize what I'm not going to make any friends at the NCAA, but I haven't made any friends at the NFL either. I can't imagine a more glaring example of poor leadership than that. I mean, the idea that you know you're going to have a Title IX problem, but you nonetheless enter into a House settlement without contemplating how we're going to fix this means you are just setting up this thing for another fight for another day. And real leaders are paid to solve problems, not ignore the ones that might be 2-3 years down the road.
I say it, folks, there were a couple of CBC members who initially supported the SCORE Act, and then they dropped it.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing HBCU gear this week, so today I'm wearing Southern shirt. And let me go ahead and say this here. The HBCU conferences, they're being used by the NCAA as well. SWAC, MEAC,
don't get me going.
CIAA, what they did was they brought them in and they said, hey, we need y'all to stand with us on this. And people don't understand what that was all about. Yeah. And I'm sorry, it was bad for them to do it, and they were being used for other purposes.
If you understand the history, you wouldn't have done that. If you understand the history that this entire thing has created a two-tiered system for students at the same schools. When have any one of us who looked like us ever championed anything that was a two-tiered system? No. No. So I talk to coaches, I talk to ADs, I understand what they hope will come from this. But if you don't understand the history and the way in which the NCAA for years has rigged the system, you and I grew up in a world where we never saw gambling on TV. Never. Never. We grew up in a system where those schools, those HBCU schools had the athletes. Why? Because they couldn't go to the other schools. Nobody at the NCAA complained about it back then.
Right.
It was all good. So the first time that you have seen NCAA coaches come out and talk about the system, the only time they have come out, except for I would say like John Calipari, right? But for the most part, the only time you have ever seen any current or former college coach come out and complain is after athletes had the same right of transfer that they did.
Right, right. And also, I just want people to keep in mind, we talk about, and I know people get excited about the Bayou Classic.
Yeah.
But people don't understand. That's a time buy.
Oh, yeah.
That's a time buy. Yeah, Grambling and Southern buy that time from NBC. That's not NBC.
You and I understand media.
See, folk don't understand
You and I understand media.
They don't understand that.
That's a paid spot.
They don't understand that.
That's a paid spot.
They don't understand that.
I know.
We have questions from my panel.
Yeah.
I'm going to start first with Jolanda Jones.
So I sure hate I can't talk about this like this because I was a full scholarship athlete. I won 4 United States championships, 3 of them NCAA. And back when I was in college, I starved while football and basketball players did not. And NIL was not around. And I had to sneak and work just so I could buy panties and food. So my question to you, with the collision of Title IX and what Cruz is trying to do, is how do you protect the women athletes? Because whenever you talk about these sports, 99.9% of the conversation is football and basketball. Most athletes are not them. So spend a little time talking about how you protect athletes like me, who are national champions and won prestige for the school, and they pimped us and we were modern day slavery.
The first thing I would do with any bill is mention Title IX in the bill. I mean, you look at both the SCORE Act and the Cantwell-Cruz Act. There's no contemplation of how do we square the House settlement or whatever rules coming forward with Title IX. So Title IX was a congressionally instituted rule. The way to fix it is to make sure that there is a congressionally instituted fix. It's not that hard, but just make sure that it's equal for everybody else. That's simple.
And Roland, I want to say something really quickly. I filed a bill in the 89th legislature, which is going on now, HB 936, where I literally said that the NCAA could not withdraw or revoke an athletic scholarship by a public institution of higher education on the basis of a student athlete's injury, illness, or disability.
Yeah.
And although they assigned it to the higher ed committee, I literally did not get a hearing on that bill. Because if you get hurt being enslaved for an NCAA institution, they can cut you and you only got injured and then you're stuck like Chuck.
Well, and look, and the reason for that is no one wants to come to grips with you have to make a choice. Either you are going to treat the people at the same university the same, and if you don't want to do that, you have to treat them as employees.
And they don't want that.
So it's either one or the other. And to me, I've always looked at the easiest fix is treat them like every other student at the university. For the woman who's got or the man that's got the debating scholarship or the music scholarship or the journalism scholarship, why do we give them 4-year full rides? And we have to make sure that the athlete makes the team. And if a new coach comes in and you don't fit into the system, you're gone.
Yep.
So this isn't really that complicated. What everybody is trying to do right now is to take a broken system and put a Band-Aid over the things that they don't like.
And that is the players getting money.
100%.
And a lot of black players.
And freedom.
And there you go. And there's a lot of black players.
And freedom.
Derek.
First off, Roland, I appreciate you covering this, but I just find it so incredulous that Congress want to consider a bill to regulate college sports, but they don't want to consider a bill to regulate that individual in the White House. Or insider trading, but I digress. My question is, what can I do as a state legislator? Because it's one thing for these kind of conversations to happen at the federal level, but I see so much at the state level where we just gave UGA, for example, $120 million. We gave Georgia Tech $88 million, but when it comes to HBCUs in Georgia, we might give them 10, 12, $30 million.
Yep.
And all these coaches are state employees.
Yep.
So the most expensive state employee
is Kirby Smart,
the coach up at UGA.
Always has been.
So what can we do as a legislator to sort of help
great question.
In this fight?
So what was the bill you said someone should sponsor? That can be sponsored on the state level.
100%. Treat college athletes like every other student act. I mean, that is something that you could do on the state level. The other thing is, look, I think one of the mistakes we make on the people who believe in democracy, we are sometimes on our side of the table afraid to use their own language.
Yep.
And the language that we should start using is states' rights. I mean, if you wanted to fight discrimination legislation, it was always, no, we're not really against it. We're just for state rights. Well, right now, every person who truly believes in equality and freedom should take up the states' rights mantle and say, in Georgia, we are going to treat the athletes in the same way that we treat everybody else in the university.
And let's say Derek sponsors that bill. The reality is if federal can do whatever they want to.
Whatever you want.
But what's going to happen is when it goes to the courts, they're going to say, wait a minute, this is a state school. This would be a Georgia law.
Supported by state taxpayers, and the state taxpayers have spoken.
Yep.
and which is the language we get for everything that they shove down our throats, right? But this idea that every state should come out with the laws, whether it's making things fair along Title IX grounds or making things similar between athletes who are playing the sport and athletes who are not, that could all be supported by the state.
Yep.
And by the way, once that happens, now what do the Republicans say on the other side? Are you an anti-states rights person?
Yeah.
Well, that hurts my feelings.
Yeah, they will do that. Robert.
Thank you so much for all this knowledge. So I think one of the big issues that people have is when you hear the kind of broader context, the broader conversation in national media, they make it seem as if these students don't deserve to get paid. As if if you hear President Trump talk about it, he makes it seem as if this is a donation to them. Can you talk a little bit about what these student athletes contribute to these universities and the fact that these coaches, you saw Nick Saban ran out of the coaching profession when he could no longer recruit the same way he did previously.
Yep,
How important is it for people to understand what exactly these students are contributing to some of these coaches who all of a sudden can no longer coach when you can't recruit the way that you used to be able to with your boosters, of course.
In fact, I ran to Saban at Reggie Jackson's golf tournament, and he was complaining about Ohio State giving, was it $1 million as a backup DB.
Look.
And he was complaining about, he's like, oh, the guy's a backup. Well, they're paying him to be a starter, and that brother's now headed to the NFL. And guess what? Saban benefited for years because he had 5 stars sitting on the bench
100%.
for 2 and 3 years.
100%.
And the problem now is he did not want to compete in a world where those 5 stars are like, yo, I'm bouncing after 1 year. And he did not want to compete in that world, yet he's the leading voice. We need to have this reform.
Don't get me going.
Don't get me going. Not only did he make millions as head coach of Alabama, the Mercedes-Benz dealership that he has in Tuscaloosa, the amount of money that he's made off the field because of those same athletes. But go ahead.
Look, we could beef about this all day. Nick was kind enough to let me go down and talk to the players at Alabama and talk about what it means to be a pro, and we've kind of have a frenemy relationship. But the reality is, if you had the ability to have 5 5-star recruits at every position, and those 3 at the bottom who didn't play, not only didn't contribute on the field, but you were also withholding their services from another university. So when all of those people, based on this House settlement, have now been able to move around, go to the schools where they have an opportunity to play or an opportunity to get paid, whatever, what do we see? We see a school called Indiana University win a national championship. So for the people who hate this, I always come back and say, I thought what we loved about sport was any given Sunday or any given Saturday that your team can win. And we grew up with that, that USC dynasty or the Penn State dynasty or the Alabama dynasty. Man, there are no dynasties anymore.
No, because you can't stack them.
And so, look,
you can't sit them on a bench and say, wait 3 years and then you'll play.
And here's the kicker. For a fan, that's what you should want. But what the real story you get once you pull the layers back, what some fans want is they want my college football.
Yeah.
I want what makes me feel better.
Yep.
And to your point earlier, and you touched upon it, it's this idea that these athletes should just simply be thankful.
Yeah. You're getting an education.
You're getting a good education.
What's wrong with you?
And what's right beneath that is otherwise you wouldn't even be here.
Yep.
Well, my point is this. There are a bunch of people playing the tuba. There's a bunch of people who've got great skills, whether it's dance or music or arts or whatever, who otherwise may not have found their way into that university. And we've never gone to those people and said, ain't you happy?
Yep. I remember.
Shouldn't you be thankful?
I remember there was a brother who was an architecture major at Texas A&M, and they were pissed because he said, you should be committing more time to football. He's like, I'm going to be architecture.
Oh.
And they were angry.
Oh.
They were angry. He was like, I don't care. He never went to the NFL. What is he today? He's an architect.
100%.
And they hated the fact that he would not
100%.
Step away from his architectural commitments in order to do some football stuff.
The irony of all of this is when you take an Ivy League school that you would assume believes in equality and the ability of a group of athletes to be a team off the field as much as they were a team on the field, that this idea, this spirit that they've come together to work together to make each other better. And yet, what did we see? We saw Dartmouth University turn their guns on the basketball team who decided to unionize. A liberal arts university is declaring war on a group of athletes who decided we want to be a team off the field. That's when I know that baked into all of this is a level of hypocrisy that nobody wants to deal with.
Folks, great conversation. Always. Do this here. Get the book. I've read it. It is phenomenal. DeMars's book. It is called Turf Wars.
Thank you, brother.
The Fight for the Soul of America's Game. It's about the NFL, but it's actually about all sports. If you want to understand the underbelly, the inside, what really happens, and see a whole bunch of us are fans. We love, oh, no, my team, my team. No, it ain't your team. It's that billionaire's team.
100%.
And you need to understand the business of sports and not just the fandom. And so get that. DeMars, always my pleasure.
Always.
Thanks a bunch.
Always.
Folks, we come back. We'll talk with a ProPublica reporter about Donald Trump denying foreign aid even after Congress actually authorized the money to be spent. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. This is why you got to support this show, y'all, because ain't no other show having this conversation. You are not going to have this conversation on MS Now, CNN, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS, because they, guess what? Because they got too many of those contracts. So support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. This is what our goal is. If 20,000 of our fans on average contribute $50 a year, that's $1 million. It totally offsets our expenses, which are $195,000 a month. It's this show and it's 5 other shows on the network. And again, there's no other black news network like this one. And so your support matters. And so Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. If you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com to contribute. And I told y'all, we don't have millionaires and billionaires cutting us checks. We don't have folks spending money like the right wing is. And so your support matters. Use that for credit cards as well. Checks in money order. A lot of y'all don't believe in the digital stuff, but y'all send those checks and money orders. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003-7-0196. PayPal's R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back. All right, folks, let me tell you about Chapter. Now, if you're on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no strangers to systems that don't have our best interests at heart. But we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. And they're focused on one thing: what works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it. If you're already in the right one, they'll tell you that too. There are no games. Just last year, people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. It's 20 minutes and a real person. It's completely free. My parents actually have already called. My mom sent me a text. Folks, give Chapter a call at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281, and connect with someone you can trust. Folks, these are the kind of services that we need for our audience here at Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. So call Chapter right now, 724-264-8281.
Hey, yo, what's up? It's Mr. Dalvin right here. What's up? This is KC. Sitting here representing the JODECI. That's Jodeci. Right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Twice impeached, criminally convicted Commander-in-Chief continues to defy Congress on foreign aid. After eliminating thousands of programs, it fired nearly all of its staff. The MAGA White House tried to get Congress to fully shut down USAID, but lawmakers said no. According to a new investigation from ProPublica, the Trump administration has refused to spend billions of dollars that Congress earmarked for crucial humanitarian and global health initiatives. The money is marked as unallocated, meaning it's been sitting unspent. Experts describe it as a remarkable infringement on Congress's authority over federal spending. Anna Maria Berry Jester, a reporter for ProPublica, joins us right now. Her article is "A Huge Grab of Power. Trump is Defying Congress on Foreign Aid." Anna Maria, glad to have you here on the show. Here's what folk don't understand. A lot of people ain't read the Constitution. Anything when it comes to money, it has a start in the House. And then once it passes the House, it goes to the Senate, signed by the president. So a lot of people, when they say, well, the president has the authority. No, the purse strings, per the Constitution, are controlled by Congress. They make the allocation. What Donald Trump has said is, I'm a king. So even though y'all passed these bills, even though it was signed into law, I can decide whether or not I actually will do it. And Republicans in the House and Senate are allowing him to do this.
Right. So our system of government, as you said, is split into three. We have, the judicial system, the executive system, and the legislative system, which is Congress. And Congress holds the purse strings. They have the power of the purse. So they pass spending bills on what money the executive should spend and how. And in this case, I was here with you last year talking about the dismantling of USAID. USAID was the largest foreign aid, humanitarian aid organization in the planet. And one of the first things the Trump administration did was completely dismantle it last year. But when it came time to talk about the spending bill for this year, Congress said, with or without USAID, you have to spend on foreign aid. So they allocated billions of dollars to foreign aid. And what we wanted to know is, was the Trump administration following the law and spending that money? And what we found is, yes, they spent some money, but there are many ways in which they are not spending the money and not following congressional directives. So either spending money very slowly, which is also not legal according to numerous legal experts I spoke with, or not spending money on certain things that Congress earmarked money for, in this case, nutrition and things like reproductive health care. But then also, as you said, they have used this maneuver where they've labeled money in a certain way that means the State Department can't actually spend it without further permission from the budget manager for President Trump.
Also, Vaught, who runs OMB, and hardcore right-winger, Project 2025, and his whole deal is, listen, I don't care what any of y'all think. We're going to do what we want. You can look at PEPFAR, George W. Bush, probably his most signature program, that has absolutely played a critical role in reducing HIV/AIDS across the continent of Africa and other countries. Well, they're like, you know what, we ain't doing this here. And State Department, they're sitting on almost $10 billion to deal with AIDS across the country. They don't care. It's like, no, we're not doing it. And so the people who call themselves pro-life are neglecting to spend the money, and it's going to cause massive deaths across the world.
Right. So PEPFAR, as you said, is this program that's existed for some 20 years. It's credited with saving 26 million lives, mainly in the continent of Africa. It provides HIV care to millions of people, health care, all kinds of testing, all kinds of things that help to curb the HIV epidemic. And what we were told by people working in the State Department is that they've been given just half of the PEPFAR budget to work with. The administration has plans to spend some of this other money, but they haven't spent it. And we're coming up towards the end of the fiscal year, and people are very concerned that they're not going to be able to spend it in time before some of it expires.
This is in your article. This is Senator Brian Schatz. It's proof that there is still broad bipartisan support for America showing up in the world, helping people and working with our allies and partners on shared challenges, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it directly benefits us. Now, what's interesting is he's a ranking member on the Senate Committee with Oversight of Foreign Aid, but the committee chair, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, refused multiple requests for comments, and I'll say this, you don't have to. When you kiss so much Trump ass, it's no surprise he won't criticize him. And this right here, Anna Maria, is the problem. Republicans are literally allowing Donald Trump to do what he wants to do, and they are abdicating their responsibility when it comes to the purse strings, and there is no way in hell in any lifetime that they would allow a Democratic president to do the exact same thing if they control the House and the Senate.
What you see in the bill from last year is that Congress together, Republicans and Democrats together, passed a bill that includes billions of dollars in foreign aid and also includes some pretty strict, strong language about how that money should be spent, how much of that money should be spent, meaning all of it, and directing the administration to give to certain organizations, to spend on certain issues, earmarking money in certain ways. I did reach out to numerous Republicans and Democrats and did not hear back from any of the Republicans.
Unbelievable. Questions from the panel. Derek, you first.
So, Anna, thank you for covering this and highlighting the fact that the director, Russell Vought, is leading this effort in freezing the $9.4 billion. My question is simply this. Why not highlight the numbers of death? The last 18 months, when they started this whole thing with Elon Musk and looking for $2 trillion and the whole USAID as it covered in your article, wouldn't it be more, wouldn't the gravity and strength of your article would be, here are the number of children and vulnerable citizens in this country and that country that have died in the last 18 months?
Right. So last year, we actually traveled to Kenya and South Sudan and reported extensively on what happened when the U.S. cut off foreign aid essentially overnight. So in Kenya, the United States had provided food for several very large refugee camps, including one in a place called Kakuma, where there's over 300,000 people living there. And what we found is that after months of receiving no aid from the United States, the World Food Program, who provided food for the people who are essentially trapped in this refugee camp, had reduced rations to such tiny levels that children were beginning to starve to death. And we met families who lost their children because they didn't have enough to eat. And then in South Sudan, we found that the US pulled funding right when the country was battling the largest cholera outbreak it's ever experienced. And cholera came roaring back, and thousands of people died as a result. And in some ways, the real tragedy is those numbers weren't counted because a lot of the aid money helped do things like collect data on the illnesses and deaths.
And this
wouldn't this be considered genocide? Oh, I'm sorry, Roland. But wouldn't this be considered genocide as well? I mean, this is a form of genocide.
I mean, I'm not a legal expert, so I can't speak to that. But I can say that we did see and meet people who lost family members as a direct result of aid being pulled away from them.
Well, this is another ProPublica story that actually speaks to that. And I mentioned Russell Vought, who's over the Office of Management and Budget, and this is literally what he believes. Quote, I don't want President Trump having to lose a moment of time having fights in the Oval Office about whether something is legal or doable or moral. Their whole deal is we're going to do what we want until Congress tells us we can't. That's really what's going on here, Anna Maria.
Yes, Russell Vought has taken on a new amount of power at the OMB. The OMB is sort of like the president's budget director. And it's this sort of obscure agency that normally no one ever hears about or talks about. But Russell Vought has taken a very different stance on what power he has and what power the president has in terms of federal spending. And I think we're seeing the results of that.
Robert?
So with this, I was sitting, I was working on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and when they started these DOGE cuts and many of these cuts to USAID, I remember going to some of our town halls in the district and talking to black voters, and them saying, well, no, I feel bad for them, but I got issues right here in Chicago, I got issues right here in Atlanta, etc. Can you talk a little bit about why these USAID cuts are so significant and how those affect us right here at home?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, foreign aid is always a political issue. You know, people have different across the political spectrum, have different ideas about how we should spend money on people outside of the United States. And so with every administration, how we spend foreign aid has changed always. In this case, there's a couple of things. So USAID was created partly as a method of soft power. So this is a way we engage with the world. And what experts have told me repeatedly is that this brings goodwill to the United States. It helps us have better relationships with other countries. And also it promotes democracy around the world. That is part of the goal of this spending. I think the other thing is that there's a lot of misconceptions about foreign aid. The budget, while it is billions of dollars, which is a very large amount of money and is a huge generosity on behalf of the American taxpayers, it is a very small fraction of our federal budget, less than 1%. But, certainly people can have different ideas about how one should spend foreign aid. I think what really troubled people is that, one, USAID was a congressionally created agency, and therefore Congress needs to get rid of it. They need to say if it's okay to get rid of it. And they also have said, directed the president to spend money on foreign aid. And so when they don't do that, it sets up what, legal scholars have referred to as a constitutional crisis, where we are supposed to have equal branches of government, but they are no longer equal if the president is able to take that power away from Congress.
Jolanda?
So, Anna, Roland says all the time, and I absolutely believe him, that Trump has a war against Black Americans. But I would ask you if you think, in addition to Roland also saying that Trump wants to basically say, Congress, I don't respect you, since spending money originates with them, it also is a war on Black people around the world. And I want to make sure, given the impact that this global funding has on HIV prevention, maternal health, humanitarian programs in Africa and the Caribbean, would you say it extends beyond Black America? And that extends to Black people around the world? Because we don't see this stuff happening in Europe and countries like that.
Right. Certainly the majority of our foreign aid spending was helping people of color. And it's a huge fraction of it went to Africa. And so when the aid was pulled so quickly and these programs were sort of upended overnight, the people bearing the brunt of this are largely African and certainly people of color, yes.
Folks, go to ProPublica.org and read Anna Maria's story. It is absolutely a critical one. It's a huge grab of power. Trump is defying Congress on foreign aid. It's another example of how he really believes that he is the king. Anna Maria, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me back. Appreciate it.
All right, folks, got to go to break. We come back. We're going to talk about how Donald Trump, again thinking he's a king, just refused to sign a bill overwhelmingly passed by Congress, by Republicans and Democrats, because he wants his massive voter suppression bill. Plus, we'll tell you what the head of the post office said today, that, we're not going to deliver ballots unless these states enroll in this Donald Trump federal voter program. Wait till y'all hear about that. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, let me tell you about Chapter. Now, if you're on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no strangers to systems that don't have our best interests at heart. But we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. And they're focused on one thing: what works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it. If you're already in the right one, they'll tell you that too. There are no games. Just last year, people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. It's 20 minutes and a real person. It's completely free. My parents actually have already called. My mom sent me a text. Folks, give Chapter a call at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281, and connect with someone you can trust. Folks, these are the kind of services that we need for our audience here at Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. So call Chapter right now, 724-264-8281.
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, time for Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble.
An Ohio couple have filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Wilberforce University, a private HBCU, after their daughter died during a marching band hazing ritual. The suit was filed Wednesday by Jarian and Larissia Jackson, whose 18-year-old Savannah Jones died on April 30th. Their suit alleges that their daughter, a member of Wilberforce's Hounds of Sound marching band, died after participating in a ritual known as Turtle Crossing. It required her to drink an entire bottle of liquor while answering questions and riddles in a dorm room, along with 10 other students. The filing states that Wilberforce knew or should have known about the hazing practices, despite the school's alcohol-free and anti-hazing policies. And the parents of 21-year-old Boston Thomas, who died in May of 2024, have filed a federal lawsuit against officials in Cobb County, saying one of its police officers used a dangerous maneuver that resulted in the death of their son. According to police, the Cobb County officer, Connor Jehan, had attempted to stop Thomas's Lexus just after 3 a.m. after noticing something wrong with his headlights and seeing him roll through a stop sign. But after Thomas sped off, the officer gave chase and eventually deployed what is known as a pit maneuver to bring the vehicle to a stop. The lawsuit claims that the officer violated department policy by so aggressively pursuing and stopping Thomas, who was not suspected of a serious violent crime. And a former Georgia Army sergeant has been sentenced to life in military prison for shootings that wounded 5 at a Georgia base. 29-year-old Sergeant Elias Radford was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole on Tuesday after being convicted of attempted murder. Army prosecutors accused Radford of targeting leaders of his supply unit when he opened fire with a personal handgun last August. He wounded 4 fellow soldiers and then his male fiancé, Raquan Smith. Smith testified that he was shot after following Radford onto Fort Stewart, fearing the soldier was suicidal. Radford admitted to carrying out the shootings in March when he pleaded guilty to charges of aggravated assault and domestic violence. He has insisted that he never intended to kill anyone. Trial witnesses describe how Radford, a supply sergeant in the 3rd Infantry Division 2nd Armored Brigade, walked to 2 offices and a conference room as he shot 4 soldiers. He was apprehended by military police and disarmed by fellow soldiers. Radford's sentence also included a dishonorable discharge and a reduction in rank to private. A popular Atlanta radio personality, Big Tigger, was arrested over the weekend on felony charges in Sandy Springs, Georgia. His real name is Darian Morgan, and he was charged with aggravated battery and 3rd-degree cruelty to children. The charges stem from an incident dated June 9th. Morgan was released on the same day on a $10,000 surety bond. Jail records show a $9,000 bond posted for the aggravated battery charge, and a $1,000 bond was posted for the cruelty to children charge. The 53-year-old is best known as a former host of BET's Rap City. He also serves as the official public address announcer and an in-game host for the Atlanta Hawks. A Black man in New Orleans has become the first person to be functionally cured of sickle cell disease. 23-year-old Daniel Cressy underwent gene therapy at Manning Family Children's Hospital for 2 years, and now the disease is no longer active in the system. Sickle cell disease, a blood disorder that affects primarily people of color. And now that Cressy is cured, he said he hopes to start a nonprofit to help other people going through the same difficult medical journey. Doctors said the therapy uses a patient's own stem cells and that they have been edited in a lab so that they no longer produce the defective cells that cause the disease.
All right, folks, be sure to check out the Breakdown at Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern, right here on the Black Star Network. Again, the Breakdown at Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern on the Black Star Network. All right, let's go to North Carolina, where Republicans continue their shameful, despicable, utterly ridiculous shenanigans. The House in North Carolina overrode a veto from the Democratic governor when it comes to whether or not local law enforcement should be cooperating with ICE officials. Yep, they did that. They don't particularly like that you had black sheriffs saying no, they were not going to do anything with ICE. Now, that wasn't the only thing. They also voted this afternoon to override a series of bills that advanced the Trump agenda that had been previously vetoed by, yes, Democratic Governor Josh Stein. They voted to override the vetoes of 3 bills, ushering them into law. The first, again, I told you about the ICE agent bill. Now, the other one eliminates all diversity, equity, and inclusion policies from all of the state's public schools and public colleges. Now, I told y'all, we always talk about voting. And see, this is what happens when you have, in states, Republican supermajorities. Now, on our panel today, we've got 2 state representatives, Derek and Jolanda. And how many times have I told y'all that we cannot act like those races don't matter? And you might be in a red state like Texas, a red state like Georgia. But here's the reality. Texas and Georgia really are not red states. Texas and Georgia are red states because those are the people that show up to vote. When you look at the numbers, there's no reason Texas should be a red state. There's no reason Republicans should control all statewide offices. But when you have folks who are not voting, when you have people who are not going to the polls, this is what you see. That's why you see this happen in North Carolina. People did not go to the polls in Louisiana when MAGA Governor Jeff Landry was elected. And guess what? As a result of that election, they got a supermajority in Louisiana, a supermajority in Florida. They broke the supermajority in Mississippi because they had to elect black folks to offices. And because of the Louisiana versus Calais decision, they're going to redraw those lines, and then they're going to get their supermajority back. And so this is what drives me crazy. Derek, I'll start with you. When we're talking about local politics and state politics, so much attention is spent, obviously, on presidential, all the attention, all the money. And then in off years, U.S. Senate races, gubernatorial races. But what people need to see, this is an example of what happens on the state level. Y'all are there. Listen, them Republicans in Georgia, they got their ass lit up last week, and they were like, yeah, we really shouldn't. We're going to back off redrawing these lines. Because it dawned on them, a lot of them could be in trouble if you start redrawing those lines, okay? Now, in Texas, they redrew those lines, and hopefully, folk gonna make them pay at the ballot box in November. We'll see. But this is why I keep saying we can't ignore these state races, because if you let folk have complete control over state policy, now what then happens? You got happening on federal, now you got what's happening on the state level. And then you got these state people saying they can, not in Tennessee, they passing laws telling Memphis what they can do, Nashville what they can do, because they have that state power.
You know, Roland, listen, I'm waiting for you to come out with a book. I know you, I got your other 2 books.
No, actually, the book comes out in February. Okay. I'm editing it as we speak. And we'll be pre-selling it in September. So, yeah, we work on it as we speak.
Well, you know I'm going to get my pre-advanced copy, my dear brother. But you covered races in Georgia in particular. And you already know that Georgia is not a red state, as you already stated. And when Republicans asked us last week, when we had this special session to reconvene, to redistrict, we can show you better than we can tell you. And they backed down. Now, what they did not say, Roland, last week, they said, we ain't gonna do it right now. They didn't say we're not gonna do it in 2026. And the reason why I truly believe they're gonna do another special session this year, because we're realizing, the voters are realizing that they have power. You all know I ran for governor. I came up short, but Keisha Lance Bottom is our Democratic nominee. She only needs 2 million votes, Roland. We have 2.5 million registered Black voters. Let me say this again. You need 2 million votes to become governor in Georgia. You need 2 million votes to become a United States Senator like Warnock. You need 2 million votes to become a United States Senator like Ossoff. We're not a red state. And so when folks say, Georgia, you're a red state, I said, no, we got 2 United States Senators. One's a Black man, the other one's a Jew. It's about voter turnout. And I'm not saying we don't need our allies in our court, much like Texas. But what I am saying, that we have the votes that we need. And if we have the turnout that we're expecting across all of Georgia, we will win from governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, so on and so forth. We got the right nominees. We just need the turnout. And then last but not least, I would say this too. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party as a whole, Roland, they do not invest in us. That's our problem. They don't invest in Black media. They do not invest in those grassroots organizations that know how to mobilize and organize, like Cliff and those that have been on your show, Black Voters Matters. We just need the investment to do what we need to do to deliver what the Democratic Party is asking us to do. We got the voters. We just got to need the investment and get the word out, and then turn out on November 3rd of this year. And we would turn Georgia blue.
Yolanda, tomorrow I'll be talking with Ashley Etienne. She co-wrote a piece in the Houston Chronicle talking about the need for investment and laid out the number of people in Texas, Black voters who did not vote in the last election. But the thing here is, I'm not talking about the Democratic Party and what they should do. What I'm saying, what we as Black people have to do. See, I get parties, I get campaigns, I get resources. That's one of the reasons why I keep saying what we have to do is also reinvest in ourselves. And what we have to recognize is that if Republicans do not have a supermajority in a state, they cannot pass anti-Black legislation. And so that's why. And again, I absolutely agree with Derek 100% about the need for more investment and more energy being put in. What I'm saying to our people is that we have to be recognizing that when we deny them from being able to completely control the legislature, that we're also protecting ourselves.
I agree with that, Roland, but you're making this super simple, and it just ain't. So
Joe Manchin always said you got to put it where the ghost can get it. So I try to make it. I try to make it as super simple as possible.
Okay, so let me be clear. First of all, a bunch of Black people are hurting. We are hurting. So people need to invest in GOTV. Like, they just need to do that. I will tell you. I guess the Houston Black political spectrum shook last night. HBAD, the Houston Black American Democrats, decided who their endorsements were going to be, and they stayed out of the Tallarico race because Tallarico has wholly refused to spend money in the Black community because his people think that we should just vote for them. And you know what? We should do anything, I mean, I guess in an ideal world, except for I don't live in the world that I want it to be. I deal with the world that is. And when you are hurting and when Republicans are in office and Democrats are in office and you're still always at the bottom of the bucket, you're like, well, why should I do this? So Tallarico literally could get with the Texas Legislative Black Caucus he could talk to the black state reps who are Democrats. I think there are 17 or 18 of us. Give us each $100K, maybe $200K, because he just gave a white GOTV organization $10 million. He gives us $1.8 million. That's giving us $100,000. I turned my people out. I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
I turn my people out and I say, hey, when you coming to vote for me, because y'all know I'm going to fight for black people, vote for Tallarico, right? But he won't do that. And the problem with oppressed people is you can't always say things to them that make sense when the sense doesn't overlay onto them. So telling me I have to vote for Tallarico, I'm just talking about black people in the Houston area and in Texas, just telling us that we have to do this because the attorney general who's running for Senate against him is really bad is the truth. He's terrible. But, you know, black people, I hear them saying, if Tallarico needs us and he's not dealing with us and talking to us, then if he gets elected, do you really think he's going to address black issues? And that's what black people need to hear. So, yes, you're absolutely right, Roland. Black people, it is in our best interest to get out and vote. But black people are sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they want Democrats to invest in us and do GOTV, and we want to hear what you are going to do to help us. We're not trusting and just believing you anymore. We want trust and verification. It's that simple.
The thing, Robert, and what I'm speaking about what ends up being the end result. Now, what has to happen, the end result is who wins on election day in November, not a primary. But what also needs to happen is pressure must be applied to those Democratic candidates, campaign managers, campaign strategists, long before September and October. I mean, the reality is this here. In Texas, Tallarico beat Crockett in March. That pressure should have been applied the next week. When we start talking about these other states, and because what I get tired of, and we see this always on the presidential level, a story is going to come out about the second week of October of some black folks complaining about what their lack of investment. My deal is that conversation, the moment that nominee secures enough delegates, boom, that's when that conversation starts. But what I'm saying to our people, what we have to recognize is that when Republicans have super majorities, then they can do whatever they want. And if they control the governor's mansion and got a super majority in the House and the Senate, there's nothing. You can have all the black Democrats you want to. Ain't nothing they can do because they can run roughshod over them, which is what we see happening in Tennessee and Florida and Mississippi and Alabama and on and on and on.
Well, you're absolutely right, Roland. I think this is the part of the year, this summer period before the midterm elections, where we have to have the conversation we have every election year to tell black folks that black issues are not radical issues. Again, black issues are not radical issues. We're the canary in the coal mine. We were talking about voting rights at 4, 5, 6 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, all the white consultants have realized maybe we should have done something to pass the Voting Rights Act while Joe Biden was president. Maybe we should have pushed that onto the back burner and said we'll get to it later while we deal with the issues we deem to be more mainstream right now. On that point, when we have black candidates or we have progressive candidates who start talking about black issues, the number one thing that you'll hear from the consultant class of the Democratic Party is, well, those are far too radical issues. You can't talk about reparations. You can't talk about criminal justice reform. You can't talk about rebuilding the black family. Those things will scare away the suburban white people, and they won't turn out to win, and then we will lose. I posit this to you who may be listening. President Trump has talked about making Canada the 51st state, invading Greenland, rebuilding the reflecting pool, spending $1 billion on a ballroom. He said he was going to take over the Strait of Hormuz. He kidnapped the president of Venezuela. This is all to say The concept of radical policies don't exist anymore, and you have to put forward policies that talk to and motivate your base. If you want black people turning out at Obama 2012, Biden 2020 numbers that you will need to overcome Republican gerrymandering, you're going to have to put policies forward that motivate black people to show up. You can't just say Republicans are racist. We know that already. We baked that into the pie. We just assumed the racism was going to happen. That's not enough to get people to turn out. You're going to have to go into those communities, campaign to those people, push forward policies, and say how you're going to make their life better, not simply the other side is mean, and once we do these nice things for these liberals and these rich liberals on the Upper East Side, that will help you out. So now is that time for all the Democratic consultants listening. You can't simply say I put money in MSNBC and not I put money into Roland Martin. You can't say, well, I went to Brian Tyler Cohen and I went to the Bulwark, I went to every other podcast on earth without sending the leadership class of the Democratic Party to black news and also talk radio outlets that talk directly to communities. If you want the black vote to turn out, you have to talk to the black vote. And I'll step off of my soapbox.
And folks understand how they also want to cheat. A new proposal from the U.S. Postal Service could very well reshape how mail-in voting is handled ahead of the midterm elections. Check this out, y'all. During a congressional committee today, Postmaster General David Steiner told U.S. senators that the Postal Service will not be sending mail ballots to states that don't turn over their voter lists to the federal government.
Anything has changed. You know, Senator, I'm not a political person, and the Postal Service is not a political organization. We, as you said, I think you quite aptly said, we deliver mail. That's what we do. We deliver mail. And that's what ballots are. Ballots are mail. Now, they are a special kind of mail, obviously. They need special care. And so years ago, we recommended what we call Kit 600. In Kit 600, the fundamental premises of Kit 600 is a unique barcode and a unique envelope. That allows us to move those ballots more efficiently, more securely. That is what our proposed rules suggest, is that we have unique barcode, unique envelope. And that is not something that is new. That's something that's been being used by states throughout the country on both sides of the political spectrum. So California has followed it, Oregon has followed it, Arizona has followed it, Florida has followed it, among many other states. And so, you know, to me, it's not a political question. It's a question of how do we most efficiently and securely move ballots. We've been recommending this for many years. All this does is make it a requirement.
Well, certainly best practices are different than having a mandatory requirement. You can follow best practices to deliver it more efficiently without having control of vast voter rolls and having the ability to have that data. This is basically a backdoor way for the federal government to get voting information that states control under the U.S. Constitution. So yes or no, if a state refuses to turn their absentee voter list over to the federal government, will the Postal Service still mail their ballots under this proposal rule?
Under our proposed regulation, no. We would tell the state that we need the manifest in order to, you know, look, what we're asking for. I mean,
that's the answer. You would tell no. So the proposed rule basically coerces states to conform to these new requirements and hand over their absentee voter rolls or face the consequences of not being able to vote by mail. Some states, that's all they do. Oregon is completely vote by mail. If they say, no, we control the list, the states control the list, we're not going to give it.
Oregon has followed Kit 600 since the day they started voting by mail.
This is a different issue. This will be a lot different issue. You're telling these states either give the federal government this information, trust the federal government, trust the Trump administration. We'll take good care of these. And if you don't do it, you can't mail absentee ballots. You're going to make a decision that people cannot vote by mail. That's unacceptable.
Well, all that does, Senator, is make sure that we match the ballots that a state believes they're sending out to what actually gets sent out, right? And so all the state gives us is a list of here are the voters that are supposed to get ballots and here are the ballots. We then compare the two, make sure that the ballots that are supposed to be sent get sent. You know, if Maryland had followed that they probably wouldn't be in the problem they're in today. So it is a much more efficient, a much more effective way to make sure that states, I would think that states would want the information to ensure that the ballots that they think are sending out are the ballots that are actually being sent out.
Well, they do know what they're dropping mail. I think they can understand that. They think if they put an address with their voter rolls on a piece of mail for a ballot and give it to you, they do expect you're actually going to deliver it. You don't have to say, we want all of your information. We want that information in our control. You mentioned Maryland. I think that was a printing error. This regulation wouldn't have done nothing to fix what happened in Maryland. The states control their own elections. That's pretty clear in the Constitution. And an effort by this administration to nationalize elections and have the federal government having this information is incredibly dangerous precedent. You can imagine sharing this information with the Department of Homeland Security and using these lists for a variety of nefarious purposes. We need to protect the integrity of the voting rolls. We need to protect the separation of elections from federal government and ensure that our state and local governments are the one administering their own elections. That's what this is about.
Well, we are the Postal Service. All we do is deliver mail. We're trying to deliver it securely, efficiently.
Well, this is all about trying to steal the election, Robert.
Of course it is. And the idea that they're pushing forward is ludicrous at its very basis, that the only way that we will deliver the absentee ballots to you is if you tell me everybody who is registered to vote and who they are registered to vote for. And don't worry, we'll just use it on the up and up, and you don't need to check into what we're doing it at all. On the federal system, the reason we have a federal system is each individual state is a laboratory of democracy. Each state, this is why you have an electoral college, which means the electors are who actually vote for the president and not the individual, because each state is who's voting for president, not the person. If you abdicate that and simply say that that the federal government gets to determine who's allowed to vote, then you've eliminated our constitutional federal system of government and you've created a parliamentary system, essentially. So when they're talking about pushing through this Save It, it's not about just ensuring that there is quote unquote election integrity. You're talking about destroying the constitutional foundations of what sets the American democracy apart from all other systems in the world. You're talking about redrawing the American electoral system. And the fact you have a president like Trump who is saying that I will not pass housing assistance until I have this should show everybody just how important voter suppression is. As Reverend Jackson told me for 20 years, when the rules are fair, the score is public, and everyone has an equal playing field, we win. This is why they're trying to change the rules under our feet, because they cannot win a fair fight against the American people.
These people are thugs, Yolanda, pure and simple. And this is Trump. Thugs. This is Trump trying to use the Postal Service to get his way, because they keep getting their asses kicked in court, losing court cases over trying to secure these state voting rolls.
They are thugs and thieves because they're trying to steal our votes. And, you know, I never thought I'd be saying this, but actually individual states have rights against the anti-Black federal government with Trump and his cronies. And he has managed to try to use every government agency to be the people that execute on his anti-Black agenda. And let me be clear, I don't trust the Trump administration with anything related to me. I don't trust the Trump administration with anything with anything related to people in my family who are immigrants, because they will be deporting people. They will be finding people to target like they did back with McCarthyism. That is what Trump wants to do. And he is using the Postal Service, or at least trying to use the Postal Service, to extort us from our mail ballots. And there are some people who literally can't go to the poll. The only way that they can exercise their right to vote is through the mail. And you are, I would argue, discriminating against some people who are disabled. That's against the United States Constitution. But Trump has never cared about the Constitution. He has never cared about us. And The reason why Republicans have targeted mail-in ballots is because Democrats in the past have been really good at using them and defeating Republicans. And if they control the Postal Service, then they can control whose votes get counted and whose votes don't, which is exactly why each state needs to control its local election, and they need to decide where the ballots are mailed to, and the federal government, the post office, needs to respect states' rights and mail the ballots to where the states say they should go. It's that plain, it's that simple. We will not have our votes taken by mail because Trump is trying to steal these damn midterm elections.
Derek?
So they want to do gerrymandering. They want to do the SAVE Act so women don't vote. Now it's absentee ballots. Let me just tell you who used the absentee ballots here in Georgia. 75% of those who use the absentee ballots, military, the disabled, senior citizens, and college students. Let's just break this down, Roland. And so you want to, they want to negatively use the Postal Service to require voting rolls, our private, sensitive information, so they can strategize to negatively impact the military, senior citizens, the disabled, and college students. So they're trying to cheat the win. There's nowhere in our society where we explain my 7 children, my 4 daughters, and my 3 sons that play sports, that you got to cheat to win. So here they are in broad daylight. But again, Roland, I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face. They prescribe this, is all in writing in Project 2025. So they're openly telling us in our face what they're going to do. The question is, are we going to allow them to do it?
Well, speaking of allowing, dumbass Donald Trump he's so desperate for his voter suppression bill, the SAVE Act, he chose to cancel a signing today of a bill that will tackle housing in this country that was passed huge numbers in the House and the Senate. That's right. Republicans and Democrats were preparing for this big signing. And then he said, no, I ain't coming. I ain't coming until y'all pass the SAVE Act. And the Republicans are like, dude, we don't have the votes for this. What the hell are you talking about? So we can't sit here and pass the SAVE Act. The votes are not there. But he wants this. He's used this tactic before, saying that he was not going to put up a couple of his nominations. First of all, he pulled the confirmation here for the Director of National Intelligence for the very same reason. And so this set off fury all across Capitol Hill. Here's this idiot explaining why he did it.
Every election is important. We're doing very well. They want a lot of communists to come in. I'm saying it a little bit differently, but the people that they're pushing are communists, and this country is not going to have communists. Thank you.
Is your move to cancel the housing bill going to work?
We're staying, guys. We're holding.
I think we had a really great meeting, and we're very proud of the party. We like our leader. We like everybody really in the room. I don't like a few people, but that's okay. I think you know who are the I'll give you that information someday. But for the most part, we have a really well-unified party. And I said it very strongly. We have the hottest country anywhere in the world. We're the most powerful, we're the smartest, we're the most respected. 2 years ago, we were a laughingstock all over the world. We had a terrible group of people representing us. Every leader, I just left G7, every leader, and we had a lot of people in addition to G7, as you know, came. Everyone said, what we've done in a year and a half is a miracle. We're the hottest country in the world, and we want to keep it that way. We have more factories being built right now than we have at any point, at any time in the history of our country. And all of those factories are opening up soon. It's all jobs. And our job numbers are incredible anyway. I see that oil just broke the $70 number. Who would have thought that was going to happen? and that's during war. And Iran is being very nice. They're agreeing to everything that I want, and they have to. Otherwise, we just go back and do what we have to do.
Now, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, pretty much a weasel. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, my reaction is, the truth of the matter, I spoke to the president for 20 minutes before I went in and gave that rousing speech to the House Republicans this morning. He and I have talked about this a lot. He has expressed the priority and the preference of the Save America Act. We share that. We passed it 3 times in the House. The latest version was passed a few months ago, and it has proof of citizenship to register to vote and the proof of showing a photo ID when you show up to vote. Basic issues that 90% of Americans agree. 70% of Democrats think you ought to have a photo ID to vote. And citizenship to vote in an American election is already in the law. But we have to enforce it because you've got a few blue states that don't do that. The president believes in election integrity. He talks about it all the time, and we do as well. In act and deed, we have stood for that. We passed the Save America Act again. Here's this. Let me finish this. This is very important. That is the top priority, because if you do not have safe elections in this grand experiment in self-governance that we have in a constitutional republic, you don't have anything. And we've got to ensure it. We have to press for election integrity measures. That's why we've made it a top priority. It has been stuck in the Senate, and here's why. Because no Democrat in the House or Senate will vote for the Save America Act. Those 2 things I just told you, they vote against that every single time, and they will. Why? You ask that. That's a rhetorical question. You should go ask them the actual question. Why? Are you against proof of citizenship and a photo ID? Why is that? They can't give you a cogent answer. The reason is they do want to allow for cheating and fraud in the elections because it is the only way that the Marxists can win. They cannot win on their ideas. That's why this is so important. The president is to us. So how does that tie into housing? He's laser focused on Save America Act, as most common sense Americans are.
Oh, that boy lying. That boy lying his ass off. That's what he's doing. He's lying, Robert. We know that bill contains more than just that.
Well, this is the part they never want to talk about with the quote-unquote Save America Act. Donald Trump was elected president twice without the Save America Act being in place. Every single Republican in Congress was elected without the Save America Act in place. They have never actually demonstrated scientifically or mathematically the existence of this quote-unquote wide-scale voter fraud that would justify this abdication of our American constitutional rights. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say you need a state-issued photo ID in order to vote. Thus, in order to change the actual ability to vote in America, you need a constitutional amendment. When you reduce the age from 21 to 18 to vote, you needed to amend the Constitution. When you expanded the franchise to include African Americans with the post-Reconstruction amendments, when you included the suffrage of women in the Constitution, you had to amend the Constitution. So essentially what Donald Trump is attempting to do with the SAVE Act is do an end run around and amend the Constitution to change the voter requirements on a national scale without going through the requirements necessary by the Constitution. So when we're talking about this, the reason Republicans try to frame this as if it's a public opinion poll or it's American Idol or something, well, people support this idea. Well, of course, when you frame things as if do you support bubble gum and candies and puppies for little children, yeah, it sounds great. Until you get into the minutia of the bill and how exactly it will affect Americans. I say to people all the time, the Save America Act is a Jim Crow law. The reason we know it's a Jim Crow law is I have a stack of Jim Crow laws I keep next to my desk, just so I have literacy tests and those sorts of things to know what it is. So if you support the Save America Act, you support Jim Crow. That's a different conversation to have, but it is a Jim Crow law in its writing, in its execution, and in its purpose. So we're going to have Republicans attempting to end run and amend the Constitution without the requirements required. We're essentially vesting in them the godlike powers to change the fundamental fabric of America without the input of the American people. This is more than just voter ID. This is the question of whether or not we have a constitutional system or if you have a monarchy where a single individual can decide what the laws are. And there are no checks, there are no balances, there is no legislation, there's no judicial review. It's simply what the pontiff wants, the pontiff gets.
Here's why I think it's hilarious, Jolanda. We can't get this bill because the Democrats, they are not obligated to vote for your shit.
And that's true because they damn sure don't vote for ours. but I will use Texas as the petri dish, right? The rural Texans, they've done polls. Internal polling for Republicans shows rural Texans, which generally is overwhelming Republican, they have about 27 Republicans that they believe are on a hot list that can be taken out. And some are endangered. There's 15 of them. So the Republicans are going to take the Republicans out in Texas, is what I believe. And it's because Trump continues to do these. Affordable housing issues are not just affecting Democrats. They're affecting Republicans and Democrats because it's not affordable. So when you are stopping bills that passed 85-5 in the Senate and 358-32 in the House, Republicans are listening to their constituents, at least in this issue, and they are voting their constituents' issue. And so just because Trump has talking points and idiots like Mike Johnson repeat them does not make them true. 70% of people are not asking for voter ID laws for IDs. That's a lie. We got people in Houston that use their light bills. Some people don't have IDs. Some people weren't born in hospitals. My son was born in Europe. He has a certificate of birth abroad. That's not an ID, like that they are saying you have to use. And so they are whining. We're not falling for it. And I'm hopeful and I believe that Trump is pissing off enough Republicans that they are going to be the people that turn on him. That's what I believe, especially in rural areas that are solidly Republican in Texas. And if that holds true across the country, I think that Democrats will take back the House and we'll be able to stave off all these oppressive and I think pre-Jim Crow laws they're trying to take us back to.
Well, all them broke-ass white folks who voted, I see they crying all over social media. We expect all this. You should listen to black people, Derek, because we tried to tell you.
Listen, not only did we try to tell them, but we told them that this was going to happen. We told them this was going to happen, but everybody kept saying the same thing. Well, we survived this first term. We should be able to survive his second term. And I keep telling them, the second term is not like the first term. The guardrails are not there. Congress are MIA, missing in action. They're not effectively doing their job. They're not doing the oversighting as they should and putting the checks and the balance back where they need to be in that Oval Office. Here are the 2 points I'll make, and I'll just get off of my soapbox. The SAVE Act is wrong to begin with. Roland, you and I both know that 72% of the women that get married in this country, they change their last name. In the SAVE Act, when you read the devil's in the detail, it says that you need to have the same name that's on your birth certificate. That negatively impacts women, white women, black women, Asian women. So the SAVE Act is wrong on its face. 27% of our population, Roland, have a passport. That's it. So that means the documents that they're saying that validates if you are a citizen of this country, the birth certificate and the passport, that's going to impact a significant number of urban, suburban, rural, white and black, old and young. The second point I would say, this bill, what makes it so hard, it not only impacts the working class families, the middle class families, but the military veterans too. And so the Republicans that often talk about how patriotic they are and how they support veterans, this bill negatively impacts them. And so the guy that makes up numbers and talk about the price of oil and gas and everything, he's missing the point, and they're going to see this come November 3rd, that those who are in the deep rural areas, as my dear sister just said, in Texas, they're going to see a blue wave running across the southern states because of what this guy is doing. It's impacting them too.
Folk, you got to show up for that to happen. All right. Let me thank Jolanda. Let me thank Robert. Let me thank Derek for being on today's show. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. All right, folks, you see I'm sitting there rocking the Southern University, the Jaguars polo, so I want to shout out Southern University in Baton Rouge. All right, folks, that is it for us. Don't forget to support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to cover the stories that are critically important. If you want to contribute to our show via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. Use that also for credit cards as well. Checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196. Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Come on, switch it. Thank you. Come on, y'all, wake up in there. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo, RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered swag. Get the swag at shopblackstarnetwork.com. Shopblackstarnetwork.com. And so again, we got hats and T-shirts and hoodies and all that good stuff. So again, you got get all of that. Go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Then of course, all the products you see in our studio here, these products are available at shopblackstarnetwork.com. These are all black-owned companies, and so be sure to go there as well. Folks, download the app fan base. Follow me at Roland S. Martin, and we certainly appreciate it. That's it. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla!
And I just hadn't taken it to the cash register yet. I guess I could say the same thing, considering I'm the one who's holding it. Yeah, I don't have time for this. Just give it to me. Excuse me? Who do you think you are talking to me like that? Oh, I can talk to you any way I want.